by Writers, the stories that made us who we are.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Raised by Writers, the penultimate one in the series. I can't believe we're already getting towards the end of Series 1. We've got another packed show for you today. My guest will be the wonderful SF Saeed. He's going to be joining me in just a little bit to talk about the books that he has brought forward from his childhood as ones that have stuck with him. We'll be speaking to another member of the Empathy Lab team in just a little bit. Helen is going to be telling us about their schools programme, and another teacher, Simon Hunt, is going to be sharing a book from his childhood that stayed with him. All of them raised by writers. Shall we crack on? But before we do any of that, it's time for my recommendation for this week. And of course, we always talk about children's books on this podcast and the books we read when we were young. But so many of us also start to take that sort of deep look into more adult literature as we go through. At the age of 12, I stumbled across a whole series of books, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, Animal Farm by George Orwell, and particularly as well by George Orwell, 1984, which is without doubt my favourite book of all time. Now, it's not a children's book. There's no doubt in the world that it was not written for children. But at the same time, at the age of 12, as I was moving on to those sort of slightly more developed texts, this was something that absolutely grabbed me and, of course, has stayed with me throughout my life. It's a very, very dark book. It's a dystopian novel about the world of the future where language is really restricted, where politics and war are the same thing. We don't quite know what to trust. Misinformation is everywhere. It's almost like certain things have come true. So, you know, when you read books like that and then you see the world developing, like these prophetic novels, Aldous Huxley's work as well, if you read that, and the time travel, H.G. Wells, all of these books I read between the ages of 12 and 15, all of them have got this kind of dystopian future, but they're all based in a sense of reality of the time. They were very, very good at looking forward and saying, you know what, I think this may be where we're headed. And in the majority of cases, they were pretty accurate. So it's a great book to read as well. It's really well structured. The characters are dark. There's a real sense of the world in which these characters living, and it really has had a major effect on my life, all from a book that I picked up at the age of 12. So this week, my recommendation, 1984 by George Orwell. And so, as ever, we're going to turn our attention to the Read for Empathy collection. And I'm absolutely delighted. The schools manager for Empathy Lab, Helen Mulligan, is joining me now. Hello, Helen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, listen, let's first off, before we delve into your amazing choice of book for this week, the schools programme for Empathy Lab has just grown and grown over the years. And you've got, there's dozens of schools signed up to learn all about empathy schools training, isn't there, at the moment?
Yeah, we're working with just over 50 schools currently. Obviously, We've worked with a lot more over the years, but yeah, we've got about 50 schools we're working in at the moment. So yeah.
Because empathy is a teachable skill, isn't it? And schools are finding that it makes such a difference to the way they approach their reading work, their community work, all of the things. Tell us about what sort of things they get up to.
Very much so. So the schools programme is all about helping schools harness the reading that they're already doing in schools to develop the skill of empathy. And as they read with their children, they are just slightly tweaking their practice, thinking about how having a focus on characters and emotions, having lots of book talk and kind of social talk around books, social relaxed talk around books to develop empathy. But also we find that has very positive outcomes on well-being, reading for pleasure, as children start to be more motivated about and enjoy reading more. And as well, as they develop more pro-social attitudes and understanding of the world around them, they're motivated to take action. So we have a big focus on social action as well.
It really does encompass a huge amount of what schools are already doing, but it gives it this brilliant empathy focus. And the Read for Empathy collection gives a really good recommendation for schools of what kinds of books really bring out those empathy skills. Now, you've chosen for us today. It's one of the graphic novels sort of style, comic book style books that are in the collection. And this is not the angriest goose or the muddliest goose. This is the meanest goose in the world.
It is. It is Gordon, and he's the meanest goose on Earth. Yeah,
on the whole of Earth. And this is Alex Latimer's creation. Now, tell us about Gordon and why you've chosen this book.
I love this book. It's a compact read, and it's just absolutely brilliant. As you said, it's sort of a comic style book about this character Gordon, who is the meanest goose on Earth, and he takes pride and pleasure. His whole reason for existing is to be mean as he possibly can be, and so he comes up with lots of very mean things that he can do to people around him. And then the other sort of main character, there's a Meanest Goose Society as well, so there's a few of his mean friends as well, but he's the meanest. And then there's a character who he's particularly mean to called Anthony the piglet. And Anthony, despite Gordon being incredibly mean to him and doing something very cruel to him at the zoo, on a trip to the zoo. I won't spoil anything.
I'm just checking. Right, this is a goose and a pig going to a zoo to see animals, yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't go together. Together.
Oh, well, that makes it perfectly fine.
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense now, doesn't it? Anthony does something that completely turns Gordon the Goose's world upside down. It's not quite like that.
Like he has an epiphany, like a moment of revelation, or
yes. But one of the things I really like about the book is it isn't an epiphany.
Oh, okay.
And I think this is so clever. It's like Anthony creates a crack. He kind of cracks Gordon right open, but Gordon can't quite deal with that. So for a little while, Gordon just carries on doing what he knows, but he's been cracked.
Oh, okay.
And from there, you just see it's both sudden and gradual. This realization in Gordon that, oh my goodness, there might be another way. It's brilliant. It's so good.
Honestly, the other geese at the Mean Goose Society are going to have a field day with him. There's going to have to be a promotion to a new meanest goose, surely.
Well, yeah. I mean, they do a lot to kind of try and keep the meanest goose, Gordon, in the field. But ultimately, yeah, I think they are all vying for top goose.
Yeah, and I have no idea how that would work out. I don't know about the democratic processes of Mean Goose Societies. I've never been a member of one. You must have read this as well. You're a working mum. Yeah. What's the reactions like when you're reading this with the kids?
The kids love it because it's very, very funny. It's one of the reasons I like this book. It's just really funny, and it's a very simple storyline. It's a very mean goose, and he goes around doing mean things, which both makes them funny, but also creates that slight awkward shock in children. It's like, what? He's doing these things? Oh, it's like this kind of awkward uncomfortableness, but both hilarious as well. It's brilliant. You're in that kind of space with the kids, and then Anthony does this kind of very simple act, and there's just this. You feel the shock and the kind of what's going to happen? What's Gordon going to do in the face of this? And then he doesn't really do anything. He carries on, and the kids are like, what's going to happen? But it's also just very funny all the way through. And what I really like about Alex Latimer's humour is it's quite dry. And there are bits. What I really like about it is that some of his jokes will just pass some people by, but completely tickle other people. And throughout the story, they'll just be like, some people will find bits hilarious while other people are just kind of listening. It's just very good. He's got brilliant humour in it.
It's one of those sort of traits of modern writing that you can write for the adults that are reading as well as for the children that are hearing and reading, and they can have a very, very dissimilar experience despite the fact that it's spot on in both cases.
Exactly, and the different senses of humour within the room, because children have different senses of humour as well. So.
Yeah, that's a bit of slapstick for some, a bit of witticism for another.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there we go. That's Gordon, the Meanest Goose in the World by Alex Latimer, is Helen's choice for the empathy section of our children's bookshelf.
The Meanest Goose on Earth, Paul.
The Meanest Goose on...
His proper title.
He is the meanest goose on Earth. Right. Well, thank you very much, Helen Mulligan. It's been a delight to have you on Raised by Writers today.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Always great to find out about the books in the Read for Empathy collection, but it is time to turn our attention to my author guest for today. Now, he was born in Beirut, but grew up in London. He's a former journalist whose articles focus primarily on the world of arts, world cinema, comics, and I know we'll get onto that in just a little bit, but he turned his attention to becoming a children's author back in 2003, and it really doesn't feel that long ago. His debut novel, Varjekpour, won the Smarties Book Prize. The sequel, The Outlaw of Varjekpour, Blue Peter Book of the Year, that was, and alongside that we then had Phoenix in 2013, but it's with Tiger, after what seemed like an age of anticipation, that he was awarded the Children's Book of the Year, both the British Book Awards and the Week Junior Awards as well. I am, of course, talking about SF Saeed. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm all good, yes. And yeah, we've as we are moving into autumn, as I said before we came on air, the cold is starting to sort of sniffle its way into my life. But yeah, that's part of the seasonal change, isn't it? We all love that.
Got to lean into it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we're going to be talking about your choices of books from your childhood and into your sort of reading journey. So whenabouts were you sort of first devouring these books?
Well, the first kind of memory of a book that I have is actually my first memory of anything at all, ever. Oh. I was about 3 years old, and my uncle was reading me The Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss. And I just thought, this is amazing. I love The Cat in the Hat. I want him to come and visit me. I think it'd be the best thing ever. The Cat in the Hat would come to my house today. And I think I knew at that moment, age 3, I was always going to love books and stories because it seemed like anything you could imagine was allowed if it was in the pages of a book. What an amazing idea. Like absolutely anything was okay, you know. And it's
everywhere, that world of nonsense in Dr. Seuss. And interestingly, you're the second author we've had to choose a Dr. Seuss book. Joshua Siegel actually chose There's a Wocket in My Pocket in terms of him going on and his journey as a poet. But there is this idea that it is a picture book. And I mentioned comics because you spoke about your writing about comics. What is it about that visual style of Dr. Seuss that has stayed with us all this time?
There's just so much energy in it. There's so much, this kind of infectious love of playfulness, you know, anarchy almost, you know. It sort of breaks rules the whole time. And like as a young child, even as an older child, even as an adult, there's something very thrilling and empowering about that. And I love the way that the words and the pictures sort of bounce off each other. In Dr. Seuss, of course, it's all the work of Dr. Seuss. But in many of the comics that I loved as a kid, you know, you might have a writer and an artist sort of bouncing off each other again. I used to love things like Asterix, Tintin, obviously Peanuts. You know, that kind of stuff really was my kind of comfort reading, you know. I loved books, you know. I was a very kind of early reader because I was very lucky. Everyone in my family loves books and reading. So there were always people reading to me, sharing books with me. So books were never, to me, kind of associated with work. They were more kind of fun. Like my uncle, who was only 10 years older than me, so he was about 13. Right. Let's read Cat in the Hat. And he loved Cat in the Hat too. I think he wanted the cat to come and smash everything up, you know, as an anarchic teenager. So to me, books were always fun. And I didn't really draw a distinction between a book that was just words and pictures, just pictures. Like it was all part of one continuum. And I kind of loved all of it. I couldn't get enough of it.
And you can tell from that enthusiasm you've got even now for those books, just how much joy they brought then and now as well. Interestingly, I remember sitting in my English class and bringing in a Garfield. I loved the Garfield series because they were in nice little 3 panes at a time. They always had a punchline and you felt like you were always moving along with it. And I was told it wasn't proper reading. And it was so demoralizing at the time. Do you think we're past that now? Teachers are seeing the absolute value in graphic novels and comics, and hopefully we're starting to shift that idea, aren't we?
I really, really hope so. And I'm very, very encouraged that there are so many teachers now who will share that message and, you know, can see what, for example, Jamie Smart is doing with Bunny versus Monkey and all of those. And, you know, these really are kind of gateways. And when you visit a school as a children's author and you ask them, you know, if your favorite books, they might be sort of, you know, the keen ones will tell you something. And if you say books, comics, manga, there's an explosion of excitement, you know. and you're overwhelmed with recommendations for manga, particularly. So I think it's undeniable. This is something a lot of people love, and I still do. I think even now, in my 50s, I still will go to comics if I want to kind of have fun. Of course, there are ambitious, challenging, extraordinary works of graphic art, literature, but somehow it never feels like anything other than fun, anything other than pleasure. So right now I'm reading a comic called Yoko Tsuno, which was written and drawn by one of Hergé's assistants, I believe. So I had a bit of a Tintin binge over the summer, and when I got to the end of that, I was like, I want more like this. So I looked into it, and I found a number of the artists who had helped him as his assistants had then gone on and done their own stuff. So I'm kind of quite deep in the world of Belgian comics.
Now without wishing to have a really cheesy segment, but if we continue to talk about that, we will end up down a rabbit hole. And your second book, honestly, you've chosen an absolute classic, and I know it's one you feel very passionate about. Tell me about Watership Down and your experience of reading it for the first time.
Yeah, Watership Down. This is a book that absolutely changed my life. My mum came to me one day with this giant 500-page long book. So I've just read this. It's amazing. You must read it. And from the very first page, I just couldn't stop. The adventures of those rabbits were so much more gripping and thrilling than I could have possibly imagined. They're a very dark, very dangerous kind of world that they lived in. And but I love that darkness. I love the kind of honesty of it. It sort of went places most books didn't go. It looked at death directly, unblinkingly. At the end, Hazel dies. What an
spoilers, come on.
Well, it's been out in the world for more than half a second. I think we're okay. But yeah, and I love particularly, I think, the sort of the mythic element of Watership Down. For anyone who's not read it, there's the story of these rabbits trying to survive in the wild, trying to find their way to a safe home. But as they go along their way, they tell each other stories. They have this amazing rabbit mythology about the great heroes of old, the great rabbits. And I just love this stuff. I couldn't get enough of it. And although I at the age of 8, reading Watership Down, I'd never really thought of writing a book myself. It had never kind of occurred to me that I could do anything like that. I do remember reading Watership Down thinking, one day I would really like to try and do something that is even a tiny bit as good as this. I think that would be an amazing thing to do with my life. And I really do believe my life changed forever at that moment. I think without Watership Down, I would never have become a writer, and everything I write owes a debt I can never repay to it.
And from that, you picked out that the rabbits themselves are storytellers, and those fables that they tell of this kind of culture of the rabbits and everything else, and that's bled into your work, hasn't it? Your work is very much about this creating mythology, which is accessible and ways that we can kind of identify within our own lives, which is what all good fables do. Obviously it wasn't at age 8 you were thinking that's the way I want to go, but how did you feel your work kind of developed with that? Were you trying to emulate, or was it just a drive of actually I want to tell these stories?
It's completely unconscious, to be honest with you. I put Watership Down back on the shelf and I finished it. I didn't look at it again until I was 35, and I had finished writing Barjack Paw. I was going to interview Richard Adams for a newspaper article.
Wow.
I think then it was maybe the 30th anniversary of Watership Down's publication. And so I reread it for the first time since I was a kid, and was absolutely astounded to find all these things that I thought I had kind of come up with completely originally. In Barjack were kind of right there in Watership Down. It was almost embarrassing just, how much there was. But yeah, above anything, this intertwining of the mythic and the real, that the mythic always informs the real. I've always loved mythology. I think my favorite lessons at school were where a teacher would just read us ancient myths. I used to love that. They were fantastic. The best lessons ever. And particularly because that teacher never tested us or asked us to write an essay or anything, just read us the myths and asked us to listen to these incredible stories. And I could never get enough of those lessons. I think they are the bits of my education that have stayed with me and shaped me in the deepest way. So to find all of that kind of there in Watership Down, yeah, it was a bit of a revelation. But it is something I seem to like doing in all my books. It's there in Tiger, it's there in Phoenix. There's always this kind of intertwining of the mythic and the real. I'm kind of endlessly fascinated in the way that mythology shapes us and shapes the way we think about the world and we see the world. And I mean, in a way, that is what Watership Down is for me. It's kind of feels like a very personal sort of mythology. Is I think it shaped our culture in quite a deep ways. Around the same time, films like Star Wars also did. I feel they're very similar kinds of projects, although one is sort of rabbits and one is Jedis. You know, they're actually
but yeah, they're looking at ourselves, but through animals or through, you know, imagining what it's like up in space. It's the same process. It's just a way of kind of telling our own stories. Now, this is whether it's by accident or whether it's by design. Your third choice is obviously very much related to something you would go on to write yourself later on. But William Blake's Tiger, has got that sort of it's a story, that poem, as well as being a magnificent work of verse, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a short poem, and yet it has the kind of the weight of an epic myth all in itself. Blake was somebody totally fascinated by mythology, and he tried to create his own mythology. That was sort of what he did in all his poetry. And again, I remember a teacher reading us the Tiger when I was a kid at school. Tiger burning bright in the forests of the night, and just the pictures it makes in your head are just immense and mesmerizing. And so I was completely spellbound by this tiger, and it seems to be a tiger, and yet it seems to be something more than a tiger. It's kind of like a tiger from another dimension, a kind of infinite tiger, and it clearly influenced me in a very, very deep way, because many years later, I think I can look back and say, well, that's the first spark of inspiration that led to me writing my own Tiger, and which of course I've spelled Tyger as a kind of tribute to Blake, but also to give you that sense. It is a tiger, but it's more than a tiger. It's a kind of a mythic tiger.
Yeah, and in your story, it's very much the symbol that brings a community together and almost kind of lifts the lid on this kind of world that they live in. A very dark world, a totalitarian state. Your tiger is that kind of symbol of that beacon of hope, isn't it? And it's important that children have those beacons of hope in their stories.
Oh, so important now more than ever. I mean, one thing that's really surprised me, Tiger was published in the UK in 2022, just been published in the US this summer, and 2025. I've been blown away by responses in the US where a lot of readers feel, wow, this speaks to exactly where we are right now, you know, in the first year of the second Trump administration. It seems to resonate very, very strongly. And one thing I found very moving is the sense that the tiger herself is kind of bringing sparks of hope and light into what seems to be an almost unimaginably dark situation. I feel like that all over the world, we're moving into darker and scarier times all the time. And I think hope is absolutely crucial. You have to keep it alive. You have to keep light alive. And I guess the tiger is my way of doing that. She is constantly bringing hope to those characters, telling them the way the world is not the way it has to be. We all have the power to imagine things differently and then to bring about a different world, a better world, you know, or never stop asking, how could things be better? Never stop trying to do that. And I think that is a base, the thing that books are for. You know, they help us to imagine how things could be different. Imagine how we might make connections with each other that we didn't know we could make, maybe work together to do something better. I think this goes right back to the very earliest human storytelling, which,
Yes.
I mean, all we know of it is mythology. You know, those are the traces of stories humans would have told each other around campfires 70,000 years ago. And we're still kind of passing on those stories now. So I feel like as writers, we're just sort of links in this great chain that goes right back there and extends, hopefully, into a far distant future around unimaginable suns and stars. We'll still be telling each other myths.
Well, yes, we've had dark times in the past, but the things that have carried through all of those dark times have been the stories, and we're still telling them, and we will keep retelling them until Kingdom Come. Now, I've got one question to ask you, though, about particularly your choices here and the books you've written. Now, were animals a part of your early life? Did you have animals around the house? Were you know, pets and things like that? Was that a major part, or is it simply you've connected with them over the years?
I've always loved animals, and there was a cat that we had when I was a kid who was I was an only child growing up with a single mum in a flat in London, and this cat came into my life when I was I suppose about 10 or 11, and he was like a sort of naughty little brother. He kind of did all these things. I mean, he was a bit like the Cat in the Hat, to be honest. He would just like run around the house and sort of climb the curtains, swing from the top of the curtains as if he was on a tree. My mum would shout him down, but I love that cat. He would jump out at you and rugby tackle you as you walk past the door. Yeah, he was just brilliant. He was the naughtiest cat in the world. I absolutely adored that cat. And he's definitely played a big part in stories I've written. And then a cat that I had much later as an adult, whose name actually was Varjak Paul.
Of course.
Definitely, yeah, he definitely influenced Varjak Paul and everything else. So, yeah, animals have always been very, very important to me. Obviously, the tigers that I live with now have played a big part in shaping Tiger. No, but I did get to visit the tigers at London Zoo when I was writing Tiger. I wrote to the keeper of the large mammals.
Oh, okay.
That's his actual job title. Yeah, he invited me to come and spend some time with the tigers. It was extraordinary. They are just spellbinding, and I couldn't get enough. Completely mesmerized. So
I think it's the size of them, if nothing else. You know, you don't envisage how big a tiger is until you're standing next to one, or at least, you know, nearby to one. They are huge, aren't they?
Absolutely huge. And the smell of the tiger is something that I'll never get. Oh, they smell sweet. It's really not something you would expect. Yeah, but they have this very kind of sweet, high, musky scent. I describe it in Tiger as like honeysuckle growing wild. And those words come straight from my notebook when I was standing there in the tiger enclosure. Like, that's what I can smell. I can't believe this. Tiger actually smells like honeysuckle. But there it is. That's research. You know, I had to do it. It was part of my job.
And you've done the dangerous thing there, because now written on my tombstone will be Paul Jenkins. He died sniffing tigers at the behest of SF Said. That's because now I need to know.
Don't do this at home, kid.
Now, look, we've waited a very long time for Tiger, and you are famous for percolating stories and making us wait. Now, I know there's little you can tell us about what is to come next, but can you give us any hints as to what you're up to at the moment?
The first thing to say is I wish I could do these books more quickly. I really do. I would love to have a new one every year. I think that'd be fantastic. And, you know, I do write a huge amount every year. It's just, I believe, and my publisher, David Fickling, believes that you should do everything you possibly can to make a story the very, very best that it can possibly be. And in my case, that means doing many, many drafts, trying things out, you know, seeing how they work or not. And then by this kind of process of evolution, eventually you end up with something where everybody who's reading it goes, yeah, no, I can't see how you could make that any better. And that's how the 4 books I've managed to publish so far were all written. They all took a long time. Varjak took 5 years. Tiger took 9. So, yes, I'm working on a new thing at the moment. I'm super excited about it. I feel really sure it's going to be the best one yet, but it's not quite there yet. I think it's getting close. I hope it won't be too much longer, but it takes as long as it takes. And
it does.
I think children's They're just too important to give it anything less than your absolute best. So although what we've got right now, I'm in between draft 10 and draft 11. You could probably publish draft 10 and it would be fine, but it isn't the very best it can be. There's definitely more in the story. And I don't ever want to look back on something I've written and go, oh no, I wish I could change that. You can't. You can never change it. There it is. So the nice thing about spending all that time, although I complain a lot to anybody who'll listen about how long it takes me to write a book, when I look at the 4 books I have managed to publish, I don't really see anything I want to change. They really are the very best that I could make them. And I feel if they survive, if they stick around, if they bring something to their readers, then all that hard work is more than worth it in the end. Anytime I hear from a reader saying, oh, I read that book and I really enjoyed it, all that hard work just disappears. It feels more than worthwhile. So yeah, it's much harder than I ever thought it would be, but it's totally worth it too.
So essentially, at some point in the next decade, a belter's on the way. That's what we're getting. It will be there, and it will be good. We can guarantee it.
Well, it will definitely be the best that I can make it, and I'm hoping it will be within the decade. Let's say.
Let's go with that. There you go. That is the best writer's timeline and deadline that I think I've ever seen. Now we've got to put your choices of books onto our author's bookshelf. So the Cat in the Hat from Dr. Seuss, Watership Down, of course, written by Richard Adams, and William Blake's Tiger take pride of place upon our bookshelf. Thank you very much, SF Saeed.
Thank you so much, and happy reading to everybody out there.
What a fascinating insight into how a book is crafted. And, anyone who's ever read any of SF Saeed's books will know that every word is very meticulously chosen so that it can be the best it can possibly be. Now it is time to turn our attention to our teacher recommendation for the week. And this happened entirely by accident, that this week's choice is a previous teacher's choice as well. I think we're finding something coming out from this podcast that I just wasn't expecting. It's almost taking the pulse of what teachers now have been reading in the past, and kind of we can create this kind of literary journey about what's being then influencing and then being taught back to children now. And my guest today, teacher Simon Hunt, is an author himself. I'll tell you a little bit about his books on the other side of this, but Simon's chosen a book which has been chosen before.
So the memory I have at primary school especially is reading with Mrs. Whittaker. When we used to sit on the carpet towards the end of the day, the last 15 minutes, and she read The Magic Faraway Tree. And it just I was mesmerised by the things that happened in the story. So the world's at the top of the tree. And when I went to my grandma's, she used to have a big tree at the bottom of the garden. And I used to play The Magic Faraway Tree. And I used to pretend when I was climbing up the tree that there was these different worlds. And then we used to read every few days at the end of school, and for the last 15 minutes, it was my favourite part of the day. So no matter what happened during the day, I knew that last part of the day, my teacher would read it to me. And from there, I got into reading from that book. And I remember she gave me that book for me to take home because I loved it so much. And I still remember the smell of the pages. It's really odd, but I still remember, I can picture it now, I can smell it now even, the smell of those pages. And quite honestly, I don't know why none of these perfume and aftershave companies have never recreated the smell of books, because if they did, I'm sure they would sell bottles upon bottles upon the perfume of pages. In fact, that sounds like a good hook, the perfume of pages. Because so ever since then, that was the first time I was very lost inside a story, sat on the carpet with my legs crossed, with my fingers on the lips, listening to these magical words of The Magic Faraway Tree.
Well, Simon has given us an awful lot to unpack there, hasn't he? First of all, perfume of pages. Get a patent on that straight away, will you? That's a brilliant idea. That's going to be in the shops in time for Christmas. But yes, last week we had our teacher recommendation as The Magic Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton, alongside Patrice Lawrence, who had chosen The Wishing Chair as her favourite book. It's also going back. We've referenced Enid Blyton with at least 2 or 3 other authors. these classic books have had such an effect on the people that are writing and teaching literature to young people over the last 30, 40, 50 years. And I think it's interesting that, this is certainly not what I was expecting from this podcast. I wasn't expecting this reminiscence back to almost literature which has become very untrendy and, people don't talk about very much anymore. And certainly I don't see children reading very much of in classrooms today. So it's really interesting to see where the influences have come from. We'll do a little tally at the end of the next episode just to talk about which authors in particular have come up and which ones have been surprisingly absent as well. Thank you so much for joining us on this penultimate broadcast. It is our last one next week. No, I know. I'm not, it's getting emotional, but we'll get there. Today's books that we've discussed, my recommendation this week was 1984 from George Orwell. I read in my teens. Then Helen told us all about Alex Latimer's Gordon, the Meanest Goose on Earth, and my goodness, he is a mean goose. SF Sade chose The Cat in the Hat from Dr. Seuss, Richard Adams' Watership Down, and of course Tiger from the brilliant William Blake. And then last off, another recommendation for The Magic Faraway Tree from Enid Blyton from Simon Hunt. Now, if you do want some of Simon's books, I did tell you about his. You need to go to Billy the Bottom Burping Pirate. Go and Google it. It's an experience, shall we say? And Simon's available for author visits as well. I know he's busy teaching, but he goes out to visit schools all over the country too. Join us next week on Raised by Writers, when we'll have our final little dip into what people are reading out there. And, I'm not crying. It's just a very dusty room. No, you're crying.
If you'd like more information on today's podcast, you can contact Paul Jenkins on social media using the handle @TeacherWriterPJ. Raised by Writers is a Double Rainbow production.